Every 11 minutes, somewhere in the United States, a truck driver dies. Not in a war zone, not in a mine shaft, not in a laboratory handling something that should never be touched. On a highway, on a road you probably drove this week. Doing a job that keeps your grocery shelves full, your Amazon packages at your door, and your gas tank not empty. Every 11 minutes. And almost nobody talks about it. Today you're going to find out why, and once you know, you won't be able to look at a delivery van the same way again. Let's start with a number that doesn't make sense. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks occupational fatalities across every job in America. Loggers, fishermen, roofers, pilots. Every single year, the list looks the same at the top. And every single year, one job kills more workers in absolute numbers than any other. Not rates, absolute numbers. More human beings. Truck drivers and delivery workers. More deaths than police officers. More deaths than firefighters. More deaths than construction workers. The professions we build movies and memorial ceremonies around, truck drivers surpass all of them, combined, and we built them a country song. There's a moment I want you to imagine. It's 2:47 in the morning somewhere in Kansas. Flat highway, no other cars, just a ribbon of asphalt disappearing into black. A driver named Marcus, 43 years old, 2 kids, a dog named Bronco, has been behind the wheel for 9 hours. He's got 3 more to go before his legally mandated break. He had a coffee 4 hours ago. His eyes are open, he's breathing. His brain, however, is running something that neuroscientists call microsleep. Involuntary shutdowns of consciousness lasting between 1 and 30 seconds. His eyes are open. He is not there. The truck weighs 80,000 pounds. It is traveling at 65 miles per hour. And Marcus is technically asleep. I'll come back to Marcus, but first, I want to explain how an industry built a system that practically manufactures this moment every single night across this country. The trucking industry moves 72% of all freight in the United States. 72. Without trucks, pharmacies empty out in 2 days, supermarkets in 4, hospitals lose critical supplies within a week. This is not a metaphor. FEMA modeled it. So when you understand how completely dependent the entire country is on trucks running 24 hours a day, you start to understand why the industry has very little incentive to slow down. Speed is money, miles are money, and drivers get paid by the mile, not by the hour. Here's the thing nobody mentions in the trucking recruitment ads with the open road and the sunset and the be your own boss energy. When you're paid by the mile, sitting in traffic doesn't pay. Resting at a truck stop doesn't pay. Taking the sleep your brain is literally screaming for doesn't pay. So you drive. You always drive. The federal government tried to fix this. In 2013, new hours of service regulations said drivers could only drive 11 hours within a 14-hour window, then must rest for 10 consecutive hours. Sounds reasonable. Here's the problem, and this is the part that stays with you. Those rules apply to the clock, not to sleep quality. A driver can spend their 10 hours in a cab that's shaking from highway vibration, with diesel noise from neighboring trucks, in a parking lot with no shade in July, eating vending machine food because the truck stop diner is full, scrolling their phone because they're too wired to actually sleep. And when the 10 hours expire, they are legally rested. Legally rested. The body disagrees, but the logbook says otherwise. And there's something else I want to come back to. Something about those logbooks that the industry fought against for 20 years. Hold that thought. Now, let's talk about the other side of this job. Because fatigue and crashes are one dimension. But there's a second one that grew quietly over the last decade, and almost nobody in mainstream media has properly covered. Delivery drivers. The Amazons, the FedExes, the Instacarts, the DoorDashes. The people who show up at your door. The people you see running, actually running, from their van to your porch and back. Did you know that delivery driver assaults have increased by over 30% in the last 5 years? That in major American cities, packages aren't the only thing getting stolen from those vans. The drivers are now being carjacked, robbed, and in an increasing number of cases, killed. Specifically because the attacker knows the van is full of valuable goods and the driver is alone, often in an unfamiliar neighborhood, following a predetermined route that anyone can observe. There's a detail about how those routes work that makes this significantly worse. I'll get there. Let's go back to Marcus. He's still on that Kansas highway. He's had his microsleep. Nothing happened, this time. Here's the neuroscience behind why this is so much more dangerous than it sounds. Sleep-deprived driving is not a metaphor for impaired driving. It is impaired driving. 18 hours without sleep produces the same cognitive impairment as a blood alcohol content of 0.05. That's measurable. That's not a scare tactic. That's from the National Sleep Foundation, peer-reviewed, replicated. After 24 hours without sleep, you are operating at the equivalent of 0.10 blood alcohol, legally drunk by any standard in the United States. Now, how many hours has Marcus been awake total, counting the time before he got in the cab? He started his shift at 5 in the afternoon. He woke up at noon. Before that, he slept 6 hours because his kids were loud and the curtains in his apartment are thin. So Marcus has been awake for roughly 15 hours. He's been driving 9. His logbook says he's legal. His brain says something different. The industry has known this for decades. In 1995, the National Transportation Safety Board identified fatigued driving as a critical safety issue in commercial trucking. They recommended electronic logging devices, ELDs, devices that automatically record driving time and couldn't be falsified the way paper logs could. The paper log system was so famously manipulated that drivers called the falsified version a comic book. You write what you need to write. The truck doesn't know. The company doesn't ask. The NTSB made the recommendation in 1995. The ELD mandate didn't take effect until 2017. 22 years. In those 22 years, approximately 155,000 people died in crashes involving large commercial trucks. Some portion of those crashes involved fatigued drivers running on falsified logs. We'll never know exactly how many. The paperwork didn't survive. Here's the dry part of this story, and I say dry because sometimes the absurdity is the only honest response. When the ELD mandate finally passed, a significant faction of the trucking industry lobbied furiously against it. The argument was government overreach, invasion of privacy, killing the small independent trucker. And look, some of those concerns aren't entirely without merit. But one of the loudest voices against automatic monitoring of driver hours was an industry that had, for decades, allowed and arguably encouraged drivers to falsify their rest records. The argument against transparency from people who benefited from opacity. You genuinely cannot make this up. Or rather, you don't have to. They made it for you. Now, the delivery driver problem. This is the piece that doesn't get enough coverage, and I want to be specific about why it's gotten worse. The rise of gig economy delivery created a workforce with almost none of the institutional protections that long-haul trucking has, imperfect as those protections are. A gig delivery driver is frequently classified as an independent contractor. They supply their own vehicle. They carry their own insurance, or don't. They have no union, no dispatcher watching their location in real time, no mandated rest periods, and crucially, no corporate infrastructure behind them when something goes wrong. And things go wrong. In 2022, FedEx delivery driver Eugene Gates Jr. was killed during a robbery attempt in Dallas while on his route. In 2023, an Amazon delivery contractor was shot in Chicago. These are not anomalies. National data on delivery driver assaults is notoriously incomplete because gig workers often aren't counted in the same occupational safety datasets as employees, which means the true scale of the problem is likely worse than what's being reported. And here's the route detail I mentioned, the one that makes this structurally dangerous. Most delivery drivers follow optimized routes generated by algorithms. The algorithm is efficient. It sends you down the same street at roughly the same time every day or every week. Anyone who wants to target a delivery driver, and unfortunately some people do, can simply observe the route once and know exactly when and where that driver will be, alone, with a van full of goods, with no backup and no witness. The route optimization that saves Amazon money is also a predictability problem for the person executing it. The driver doesn't set the route, they just follow it. And the van is branded. Everyone knows what's in it. There's a proposal that several logistics researchers have raised to address this: randomizing delivery windows and route segments. But it adds cost and inefficiency, and so far, the math hasn't moved the needle for the companies making the decisions. The people absorbing the risk aren't the ones running the spreadsheet. Let's talk about the health side for a moment, because it's not just crashes and crime. Long-haul trucking is one of the most physically destructive careers a human body can undertake. Drivers sit for 8 to 11 hours at a time in a vibrating seat, and mechanical vibration at the frequencies produced by diesel engines is, over years, genuinely damaging to the lumbar spine. Cardiovascular disease rates among truck drivers are significantly higher than the general population. Obesity rates are higher. Sleep apnea, which is both caused by and contributes to dangerous fatigue, is estimated to affect roughly 1 in 3 commercial truck drivers, compared to roughly 1 in 15 in the general population. Some of that is the job. Some of it is the food ecosystem of the job. Truck stops, fast food, vending machines, no refrigerator, no stove, no time. Some of it is the isolation, which is its own category of damage. Driving alone for weeks at a time, away from family, without meaningful social contact is, and this is clinical language, not drama, a risk factor for depression. The suicide rate among truck drivers is statistically elevated. This fact appears in occupational health literature and almost nowhere else. There's one more layer to this, and it's the one that makes people uncomfortable. So, naturally, I'm going to go right at it. The trucking industry is facing a severe driver shortage. Estimates range from 60,000 to 80,000 unfilled positions. The average age of a commercial truck driver in the United States is 46 years old. The pipeline of new drivers is thin. So the economic pressure to keep the existing drivers driving, longer, harder, on less sleep, through more difficult conditions, is not decreasing. It's increasing. The shortage means rates are competitive, which means companies need drivers, which means drivers have more leverage, but also more pressure. The Amazon delivery ecosystem is expanding. E-commerce grew 40% during the pandemic and didn't fully contract. The demand for last-mile delivery is going up, not down. The workforce doing that delivery is not growing proportionally. So the math, right now, in 2024, points in one direction. More miles, more hours, more pressure, more risk, and more packages on your porch. Here's what I want to leave you with. Not statistics, a moment. Every time you hear a delivery knock at your door, there's a person on the other side of it who left their house before you woke up, who is eating lunch out of a cooler in a driver's seat, who has driven a route through neighborhoods they don't know, who may not have slept enough, who carries the physical weight of a job that is statistically one of the most dangerous in this country, and who is paid, often, in the range of $15 to $20 an hour to absorb all of that. They're not a shipping notification, they're not a tracking number, and on a highway somewhere in Kansas, Marcus made it home. This time. The next driver on that route might not, and the one after that. And we will keep ordering things at midnight, clicking the 2-day shipping, and watching the progress bar move without thinking about the hands that are moving it. One question I'll leave open, because I genuinely don't know the answer, and I suspect you don't either. Whose job is it to fix this? The companies who profit from the system? The government that regulates it? The consumers who fund it? Or all three, which historically means none of them, until the next crash that's bad enough to make the news.